And let's start the meeting. So what I wanted to talk about today is to actually let you guys talk and see what you have experienced, observed so far. And I've heard all kinds of interesting and, all kinds of interesting but good and bad stories. I've heard many good stories so far from people who came up with ingenious ways to promote the program, such as reaching out to ESL programs, English as a second language programs, homeschooling programs, going to private schools that seek projects like this one so that they can use it as a selling point of their school, bragging that only they, the area, offer an opportunity for their students to participate in a project with people from different countries. I've heard some challenges or about some challenges, like, for example, people come into a school and the school not knowing who you are and what you want from them, feeling almost like a sales agent. And so that was not comfortable and didn't work very well. So I thought maybe we will hear a little bit more from you guys today, see what you've encountered so far, what ideas you have, and maybe collectively we can, on the one hand, learn from each other, but on the other hand, also help each other solve some of the challenges we've encountered so far. So who wants to go first? Yeah, go ahead.
I will look like downside, but so far my experience in Xculture Academy started in October. And when I started on business trips, the first business trip was with university, but the other business trips were by my initiative. And I was a participant on different conferences that we are on the goal to promoting like a better society, a more democracy society, or more people that are aware of cyber attacks or education, etc., etc. And every time I took contacts from people from there, for example, contacts from the administration of the Comité Européen de Développement Régional. This is a European Committee of Regional Development. Mm-hmm. And they have a sector which is responsible for the education and youth. So I wanted to talk, I've talked already with them about Xculture Academy, and they the administration with iTalk, they told me to send a letter and that they will resend it to Youth and Education Administration. Mm-hmm. But the problem on that moment was that there was no material, and then material appeared. The EU institution, how to say it, wasn't so ready to receive, right, because it was already December, and I don't know, as many people know, but European Union and its institutions are not the fastest in the world. And because I'm in Belgium, Belgian people also not so fast. So I decided to focus on local perspective. I found the contact of local Ministry of Education, but honestly still didn't reach him. But I decided to go to school because there are a lot of schools here. And I focused on schools around me, and there was experience of one half success and two fails. Half success, the people were interested. They told me that they will look and advise with professors. So basically, the directors believed in this idea. But the problem that they told me already on the beginning, that kids are already over busy, right, overloaded right now, because it's December, and in Belgium, like each week is like a two holidays, like Saint Nicholas, they have like a 6th December, the second Saint Nicholas, Saint Lucia, just gifts and etc., etc. And like in December, it's extremely overloaded.
Right.
And they already have a planned budget for this, because they cannot promote. It's like like parents pay. It has to be a decision by board of directors, and the board of directors will be a huge problem for them, right, because
takes time.
It takes time, and they don't know. For me, it was like I came from the street, some guy, right, no business card, no pamphlets, nothing, just talking the idea, and they're like, okay, but can you leave us business card? Sorry, it's not printed. Can you give us a pamphlet? Sorry, it's not printed. It wasn't the best experience so far. The other experience, on the other hand, that people, how to say, that possess high level, they understand the benefits of this program and they want to support. But the problem here is first, to start supporting the six culture programs, they have to see that on low level people need it. So in January, I will focus in Belgium on private school. Now I'm researching on it and etc. And now, accidentally, I don't know how, but my focus shifted to Ukraine. I have a lot of people in Ukraine, people that have kids, and I ask, are you interested? And there are movements there. There is still no result, but at least ice break. And now I'm looking, in Ukraine, as far as they go, they value such kind of programs more because they have people not from low-income families, but at least medium, and they understand how it works. So basically, it's so far, and I hope it will be better and better. But fails, yeah, it happens. We should move. The other experience I already told you, it was like I organized a meeting for the College of Europe staff, and no one came. So basically, yeah, there was no interest between that.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's very useful to know. Who goes next? Who wants to share your story so far?
I think Fabian wrote something, but if you want me to speak, I can definitely speak.
Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell. So, Fabian, your microphone was muted, one, and second, let's test if it works. So let's Mitchell go first, and then Fabian next, and then Sushant.
Yeah, so personally here in the US, I've spoken to a lot of guidance counselors so far. I think guidance counselors are really good insight into how the school functions and how to get actually in the door with the new program. From that experience, I've spoken to a lot of schools I have personal connections with, so they could give me this really straightforward answer of if they could do it, if they could not do it. At the moment, a lot of schools would like to. However, they don't have the authority to promote a new program with the new budget. X-Culture is an inter-free project. We can't just get funding immediately without the superintendent to verify the program, to verify everything, to find out if the program's legitimate or not, and then if it's worthwhile for their time.
Right. And that makes perfect sense. I mean, I guess that's what I would do if I were a principal of the school. I would only add to that, that at least in these initial rounds, if the school expresses interest, but it's a matter of the budget, it is perfectly fine if the school participates for free, and as long as they seem to be interested and serious, and we know a teacher will do her best to make sure that the students will stick around for the entire duration. I would be a little less comfortable allowing individuals participate for free, just because, as I said, in that case, they are not obliged by any, by anything to stay around for the entire project. And in my experience, those people, or some percentage of them, will drop out, and that will be more problems than good for the rest of the participants. But if it's a school, if it's an organized effort, if there is a teacher, in that case, we can be reasonably confident that most of the kids will actually be participating, just because it is part of the sort of curriculum, even if it's not a course, but just simply some sort of an after-school activity. Once there is a teacher, it's a little bit more formal. So from that perspective, we don't worry that much about the money. I mean, maybe in the future, when we have a long line of people waiting and begging to allow them in the project, maybe we can be a little bit more strict, I guess, or greedy. But for now, I guess numbers are more interesting than participants are more interesting than money. So, yeah. Go ahead. Yes, Volodymyr. Unmute your microphone, though. Your microphone is muted. Go ahead.
One question about professors, because one principal of school asked me a question: will professors be busy, and how much? Because not only kids are overloaded, but professors also.
That's a very good question, and I don't know how to answer it for schools. We'll need to test. For the universities, we actually, one of the biggest selling points of X-Culture is that they will be less busy with us than they would be otherwise, meaning that most professors would like to have some sort of an experiential activity for the students. Most professors recognize that simply lecturing or making students read books is not enough. And so when you organize a project like this on your own, then you have to do everything. You have to make the arrangements in terms of, finding a client company so that the students do it for a real company, developing all the tasks, developing all the training, keeping an eye on every student and tracking their performance, so grading the work. So there is a lot of work that goes into organizing the project, even if it's only your own class. With us, we actually say that even if you disappear on day one, the students will still participate and do well. We already have all the infrastructure in place. We have all the documentation in place. We will provide centralized planning, training. So the students, once you send us the names, they will get welcome letters directly from us. They will get links to the training pre-project, at least some training modules from us. Every week, we will check with them on their performance. We will do peer evaluations. We will provide some sort of feedback to the students. We will send you, the instructor, a detailed performance review on every student. And then again, if you want to help them and if you see there is a team with a problem, you can. But if you don't, we have coaches. They will reach out to the students and help. So we have basically everything in place. And if the instructor just simply, gets sick or disappears or gets hit by a truck, the students will still be well attended to. Obviously, we do want instructors to be involved more, and we appreciate when they actually try to work with the students and help them. But again, they don't have to. And so in the end, when they participate in Xculture, yes, it is a little bit more challenging in the sense that the students go through more challenges. Working with people from other countries, cultures is more challenging than working with students from your own class. But as far as the work for the professor, it actually seems like it's much, much less work letting us do the job and then simply kind of observing and keeping an eye on the performance reviews and then intervening when you can. And if there is a need, then doing it themselves. With the schools, I don't know. I'd like to think that it will be the same thing, but I imagine that with smaller kids will, require a little bit more guidance. And I imagine that instructors will probably have to invest some time. And so it will not be as much time as if they wanted to do something like this on their own. So if they already do some projects and kind of outsource this work to us, they will save time. But I think most of the teachers in school don't do anything like this. So they just come and do their usual whatever lecture, or children open the book on page 23 and do exercise number 5. And so if they compare the amount of work they need to do when they stick with the old routine versus actually add this project, I think it will probably require a little more work, because otherwise they just don't do anything, and here they have to do something. But if they would like to have an experiential project where students do something and produce something, and even if they don't work with people from other cultures, I imagine that our involvement with us will save them more time than if they wanted to organize everything on their own. Not to mention, again, that ours will be, I don't want to say better experience, it's a very different experience. So one professor, one teacher in a school probably cannot line up participants from multiple countries and expose his students to this sort of cultural diversity and new experiences. So the answer would be probably save time if you're already doing something. Possibly will cost you a little more time if you don't do anything but want to add something. But if you would like to add something and give your students a little extra, then this is the most efficient way to go, because it will take you much, much more time and effort to do it on your own. I see the comments Fabian wrote. I have to type rather than speak. The problem is I'm having children going on vacation and the major focus is on holiday. And yes, that's something everybody says. And so I do recognize that the timing is kind of against us. Looking back, I think we should have pushed it a little bit more and started a month earlier and maybe even 2 months earlier. So, but again, we do what we can. So there are 2 things I want to say here. One, even if we started a month earlier or 2 months earlier, there is a good chance that it would have been still too late for the spring semester, meaning that in schools, at least, it seems like these kinds of arrangements and plans are made way in advance. And so it seems to me that now it is too late perhaps for the spring for schools because they need more time. But it may be a good time to start talking about the summer and the fall of the next year, meaning that, yes, the schools may now express interest and start thinking about, the budgets and who's going to be responsible for that and how to do it. And so by the time they will be done, it will be probably, I'm not sure if they want to be involved in the summer session, but maybe in the fall session. So from this perspective, I wouldn't look at it as it's too late. I would look at it as it's a good time for the next semester. My hope is that there will be some schools for whom it is not too late, and even if they don't sign up before the break, we will still have a whole month after the break, and so hopefully they will be able to sign up in January after they come back to school. So we'll have again to see, I've seen now some reports about private schools that don't have all that bureaucratic structure over them. And so as long as the teacher wants to try it or the principal likes the idea, they just go ahead. So hopefully there will be enough schools like that to participate. Going back to your compensation, so several people did express the concern that it's too late to make enough recruitments for the spring semester. And it seems like we have 3 distinct categories of regional executive directors, or 3 distinct behaviors that they can follow or adopt in this situation. Some people said, it seems to me that there is not much that can be done in December. On top of that, I'm busy with my end of the semester exams if they're in school. Plus, I want to go on vacation myself with my family and stuff like that. So it seems to me that I probably should just simply kind of relax and not do much in December anyway, because it seems like it would not be possible to do much. And so just basically do my things and then start in January as if it's my first month. And that is a good, sensible strategy. And as I said in my email, I'm perfectly fine with sort of kind of moving your start date to January. And so as we said, we want to have a little, small kind of minimum performance quota, like 5 signups for the first month. We can just simply kind of disregard December and basically go with that in January. So if that's more comfortable for you, that's perfectly fine. Other people said that I will try to do my best. I will keep working on it. But it looks like nothing's going to work, and meaning that they will express interest, but they will not make basically the actual enrollment, will not proceed with the enrollment until January. And again, I totally understand that. And so what we'll do in this case, we'll just count those signups retroactively. So we'll just, if they come in the first few weeks of January and we know you've talked to them before, obviously we can count them as January and give you your base salary for, December, give you your base salary for December and then proceed with January as normal. And then obviously there are some people who say, actually, you know what, I've gone to a few schools, I've talked to a few friends, and it seems like there is enough interest. So I'll continue working on this, even though we don't have many people, for many more days in schools, but, it seems like it's still possible. So I spoke to this school, I spoke to that school, they seem to be interested, let's see what happens. So in any case, as I said, whatever happens, I will be on your side as long as we know that you've done some work. And to that end, I would like to say that some people are very active, like, for example, I see Mitchell, I see Fabian, I see Volodymyr for that matter. Every single time we have a meeting, I've spoken with all of you on numerous occasions through other channels, which I kind of don't like. It takes time, but at the same time, I do like that you reach out actively and, do things and keep me updated. So we have 33 people, I believe, total, 34 on the team. And about 15 or so are very, very active. I hear from them all the time. I know they're doing a lot of work. And obviously, I'll do everything to make sure that they don't feel like they've done it for nothing. We do have a few people whom I've never seen, like they never attended any of the meetings. I've never seen from them, any emails. The weekly progress surveys, again, they didn't submit them. And so there are a few people whom I don't know, maybe they just got sick or maybe they're just more comfortable watching the recordings and kind of doing their own thing and not keeping me updated, every day. But I don't know, so we'll have to see. So from this perspective, I'm kind of reaffirming my decision to stick with some sort of a minimum requirement before we start paying the base salary. But at the same time, again, reaffirming one more time, if we have a situation where I know that you've been working a lot of, doing a lot of work and trying your best, and it just didn't work because of the, bad timing or something else, that is no problem. We'll work out something, and so you'll get compensated in some form for your efforts. So I wouldn't worry about that. So Fabian wrote some more. So about documentation is critical in Canada. Lots of schools are requesting documents, information to review. Okay, yeah, I definitely agree with that. So we do have already the pamphlets. And I think that would be probably the best way to go. And I hope I will have by Monday very detailed teachers' handbooks and parents' handbooks. And so those will be very long, boring documents, but that's, I think, what many people will need at some time, no matter what. So they want to see those details. And especially when you talk to a school and the school, the teacher or the principal needs to present it to somebody else, then in that case, they will need a long and boring document, and we'll have that ready very soon. I just have been busy a little bit with all those pamphlets and business cards and whiteboard animation videos and some other things related to the accounting and the legal registrations. But yes, so I'll try to have it by Monday, and definitely when the school will ask for something like that, we'll have something of that kind. And so Fabian continues then that so the school have a financial year to discuss a budget, and yes, so totally understand it, and more likely than not, many schools will actually be signing up for the next school year just because how long it takes. At the same time, if they want to give it a kind of test run and try to participate for free and just see if it works, perfectly fine. So we'll count it as an enrollment for you, and we will also allow them to participate. As I said, the only thing I may require in that end is maybe some sort of a meeting with the teacher who will be overseeing the process. And I'm not sure if I need to meet with the teacher on Skype, or probably better if you meet with the teacher, but just to make sure that the teacher looks serious to you. What happens sometimes, literally we've seen that at the university level, where the dean of the business school loves the idea and says, sure, we're going to participate, and then appoints someone, some teacher, a professor who would be overseeing the project. And then the person literally doesn't even know what it is and what's going on here, and then, you know, the whole system doesn't work. Or the other way around, the professor signs up, but then later they discover that they should have told the dean, and the dean wants to have control over everything. And so in the middle of the project, they make it, you know, make a big fuss out of it and literally drop out. Talking, by the way, Fabian, about Canada, we did have a situation like this semester. So we have NAIT, North Alberta Institute of Technology. It's a smaller college in Alberta, many miles away from Ontario, but still in Canada. And so they had participated multiple times. There is a wonderful professor there named David Cave. And so he's participated for many times and did a very good job. And so they liked it so much that this time they enrolled, I think there were like 3 or 4 different professors. And then in one of the classes, one of the students, for some reason, is a little kind of litigiously inclined. And so for some reason, he decides that the data we collect somehow violates his privacy. And so instead of contacting me and asking first if we are following certain protocols, which we do, there is an institution called Institutional Review Board, which oversees the research ethics in all of North America, including in Canada. And so obviously before we collect any data, before we ask any questions, we have to get their approval. And so obviously we treat the whole process very responsibly and make sure that, you know, as I said, the data become anonymous once we submit the grades. Students can drop out from the questionnaires at any time. They have this consent form that they have to sign. So obviously we have all of that. So they're informed about, you know, what we do at all times. But that student somehow misses it, and so goes to the Institutional Review Board, where I think they call it at that school Research Ethics Committee, and says, oh, there is this project here, and I don't know if they, you know, what they do, but it seems to me like they're invading my privacy. And so they make a huge fuss out of this. And again, instead of going to me, they go to the professors and say, you must withdraw from the project before we find out what's going on here. And it happens to be at the time when I'm in Mexico visiting with a few agriculture universities. And so it takes me like 2 days before I even learn about this whole thing. So it takes them a few days, you know, to go to the professors to withdraw. Then the professors, instead of telling me, tell the students to stop working with the teams until further notice. And so it's like 3 days before I even hear about that. And so obviously I go directly back to them, send them all the documentation, say everything's fine. And they look at this and say, oh, actually, yeah, it does look like everything's fine. But there were a few days when this whole, you know, hell broke loose, and the students started panicking and thinking, oh, what did we get into? So maybe it's bad. The professors allowed students to withdraw. And I think one of them actually told them to withdraw. The other 2 or 3 said, you can if you want. And so there are like now dozens of teams, and it's like 90 students. It's a big, you know, group total. There are like 90 teams where a student from Canada said them, you know, that I'm out. And so there was this whole panic. And so in the end, we fixed the problem and sent all the documents to them, and they were happy. But that's the case when, one level likes the idea, gets involved, another level doesn't quite understand what's going on and messes the whole, process up for everyone. So this can happen also with schools, where, as I said, the professor may be, teacher may be enthusiastic, gets in, but then the principal finds out and doesn't like that he was not consulted, for example, and then, students are pulled out, or the other way around. The principal likes it, thinks the students should get enrolled. The professor doesn't get, the memo. And then again, the time to start comes now, and the professor is not ready, and then we may, catch up. So definitely we'll have the documentation to make sure that, maybe even we'll have some sort of like an agreement or memorandum of understanding. So where the school signs, we sign, just so on the one hand, it looks more official. On the other hand, people know what to expect and know what we can offer, what we cannot offer. Because again, sometimes we have situations where people later say, oh, I thought, if we participate, you will pay for our, expenses to go to the symposium, and now turns out we have to pay for it, and not even everybody will be invited. So things like that. So we want to make clear that, there are some things we can do and some things we cannot, and we want to be clear about that. All right, so and Fabian also adds that I was sick, had to hospitalized for a few days. Sorry here to hear about that. Hopefully you're good now. And and not very active on the Facebook. No worries about that. I have a few questions for you guys. One, did you try to also talk to individuals? For some reason, I believe that we will have better numbers, better participation results from individual sign-ups. Basically, students signed up by parents. And the reason for that is twofold. On the one hand, because schools are slow, and they may in general like the idea, but by the time it takes them to actually sign up, it may be so long that it wouldn't matter. And also not so many of them may actually proceed with the sign-ups just because, again, it's too difficult in their system. Whereas parents recognize the importance of this project for their children. And I would not be surprised if parents would be, first of all, much faster, and second, will spot the opportunity much quicker, and as a result will be more inclined to participate. And so I'm just curious if you tried to reach out to some non-school organizations, like maybe, as I said before, like, I don't know, English clubs or chess clubs, or maybe some sort of parenting groups, or maybe simply friends and, just random individuals who might be interested. And if you have, what has been the experience so far? Anyone wants to share your experience?
So personally for me,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
So personally for me, the individuals who I've spoken to are high school students that are currently enrolled in public schools.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know them personally, I reach out to them saying like, hey, I just started this position at X Culture. Would you be interested in about it? I told them a little bit about the program and stuff like that, and they go, yes. The concern I have, or they have with that, is they also know that I'm reaching out to the schools. And that kind of creates a conflict of, do I register by myself, or is my school going to be registered in the spring?
It's an interesting situation. I didn't think about that. Huh.
And if they were to apply to them by themselves, they would be paying about the $200 registration fee. And if they were to wait for the school registration, then they'd basically pay nothing. And that's a concern they have to think about, and if it's worthwhile for them to wait for the school, or if not to.
I have, by the way, a couple of comments on that. I don't know the best. I mean, first, honestly, I didn't expect that to happen. I thought it would be going the other way around. But one quick comment. If it's a matter of money, again, even if it's a rich country, the United States, again, at least in the trial period, we would be happy to give them the participation stipend so that they can still participate without feeling like they have to overpay. The only thing I would request that you do in that case is present it to them as a personal favor, not as a standard practice, so that they know that the actual value is higher, and they're just lucky to be able to talk to you and get that specific discount or stipend, rather than, oh, we give it to everyone because we need participants. But that's a minor issue. Mm-hmm. Another thing, so several people asked before, and I think that actually kind of ties up to this situation. Several people said, what if several parents want to kind of create a group? So basically, let's say there is a school and the school cannot participate for whatever reason, bureaucracy or, money or something else. But then there are a few parents who would like to participate. And let's say several parents say, okay, we will not wait for the school. Let's gather up a class of, let's say, 5 people, or group of 5 people, and sign up as a group. And so we talked before about how we might want to give some discount, if you bring a friend. But if you have a larger group, like it's not just bring a friend, but have, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 people, can we treat them as a school? And so I like that idea, because in that case, you again have sort of like an organization, especially if one of the parents maybe emerges more of as kind of as a brain center for that whole operation. So basically serves as a chaperone, or I don't know, teacher, or I don't know, whatever you want to call this person, instructor. And so let's say you have someone who's waiting for the school to sign up. Maybe what we should offer them is, why don't you just go to, talk to other classmates and see if you can maybe have a few. And so in that case, maybe you guys can enroll as a group, as a basically school, and we can set some sort of a minimum, let's say 5 people. But if there are 5 people, we can give them the school rate essentially, and in that case it will be cheaper for everyone. We will still have sort of a school, but at the same time don't have to wait for the school system to approve it. And then I think it will also legitimize the whole thing for the next round. So maybe then the school will see, a bunch of students already participating, why not make it, formal? So I don't know how exactly it might work, but do you think this sort of, reasoning might work and might,
There was a workaround that I kind of discussed when I first applied to the X Culture director program. And it's to create a club within a school. But I would need a representative from the school, let's say a student, to go to the school and say, I want to start a club. And that would be the X Culture Club.
That would be a very interesting one, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A club, yeah. Many schools, again, I don't know, by the way, Mitchell, how it works in other countries, but as you know, probably in the United States, there are all kinds of extracurricular activities at schools. In fact, every school has, like they would probably have like a marching band and probably an orchestra and probably a chess club, and then obviously basketball, track and field, and whatever, soccer. So all of those are essentially clubs. And so it's relatively easy to create new ones as long as, there is interest and there are more than 2 students interested. The principal usually says, sure, I mean, in the after hours, the space is available, go ahead. Especially if it's something that doesn't even require space, people can work from home or maybe meet and discuss from time to time. And so there are many schools that do have a business club or have an entrepreneur club or, like they say, future CEO club. So I think this could be one of those activities, and perhaps that's something that we might want to promote.
And a great benefit that Orange County specifically has over a lot of the other states and areas that are within Florida is Orange County is well funded. In fact, that between the ages of, I think, the entire X Culture Academy program, between like 9 and 17, every student is given either a tablet or a laptop or anything. So they have the initial base requirements to join X Club, which is having that technology, having that access to the internet. And that really kind of pushes forward the idea of, are they going to be able to complete their projects on time? Do they have the resources to be able to participate? And the answer to every single student in Orange County is yes.
By the way, same thing in North Carolina. Every single child after grade 5 receives first a tablet and then a laptop. So my son now has a laptop, my daughter still with a tablet, but that's part of the basically. But that is easy. So what you said about the clubs, I think is actually genius. I've been thinking about it only for 45 seconds now. But I think that will probably turn out the major mode, because as you guys know, schools not only are slow, but may not be like literally allowed to add new courses. The syllabus, the curriculum may be set at the county, state, or maybe even in some places at the federal level, if they stick with that Common Core and stuff like that. So they have to follow certain, like they cannot just create a new course in business, but they can easily create extracurricular clubs. And so in that case, it will give some formality, legitimacy, was the word, kind of form and structure to this idea. And in many cases, they can be created by parents. I know that, for example, at my school, there is a chess club, and it is run by a parent. And so the parents just go to the principal and say, I like this idea. I'd like my child to participate. There will be probably more children. Can we just see who wants to sign up? And it's very easy to do because in that case, you don't have to mess with the curriculum. You don't have to get any approvals from the higher institutional levels. You just set up a club. And in our case, it could be international business, an international business club. And so we can have a parent who is proactive and interested, maybe, one of the teachers who may join as a supervisor. And in many cases, teachers would get some little extra pay for, supervising this thing. I even like the idea of perhaps even offering some sort of, benefits to the teacher if they take, or maybe a parent for that matter, if they take, basically if they get involved as a club supervisor, for example, maybe some sort of like a travel stipend to attend a global symposium, maybe, some sort of allowance for books or something like that. So I don't mind that as long as the parents, chip in a few dollars to cover the participation fee. We can literally give some of that back to the organizer who will be doing much of the, like maybe, I don't know if there's going to be weekly meetings or semi-weekly, but, some sort of like meetings among the students. And so, or maybe, one of the regional executive directors can even volunteer for that role. And so it doesn't have to be every week. So it doesn't have to be too much time. It can be, like initial orientation at the beginning of the project, then maybe an occasional check-in either online or face-to-face during the semester, and then maybe a bigger meeting at the end when students present. And so again, that could be something that would be of interest to you to do. Again, good experience. As I said, we can provide some sort of budget so you can maybe, printed materials or some little gifts maybe for the best students and stuff like that. And so I actually think, strange that I never thought about that, but now that you said it, Mitchell, I do believe that will be 90% of the signups from schools will be through the club structure and not through the, teacher of geography makes it mandatory for all the students who take his geography class. Yeah. And then on top of that, I think it will be much better for us too, because one, as I keep saying, selection. We don't want people who are not ready because they will spoil the experience for everybody else. And if a teacher, let's say, teaches geography or English, whatever the subject is, and makes it mandatory for all the students in the class, I know that some students are not ready and we'll have to take them because, the whole class is signed up, and then basically suffer the consequences. If it is run as a club, it is optional, and so there may be some sort of a selection process. And so only those who are intrinsically motivated will even express interest to participate. And then even those who don't have to take all of them because it is not part of the formal class. So that may actually work much, much better for us, as well as allow them to reach across the classes. Again, if it's one professor who teaches, I don't know, English, geography, or whatever, economics 101, then it's only that specific course. If it is a club, either again, supervised, chaperoned by a parent, by a teacher, by a regional executive director, or a combination of the three, they can say anyone in the school can sign up, just like a chess club, like a basketball club, anyone who wants to. I mean, maybe some age restrictions, but yes, sure, it's open to everyone. So we may even have more participants that way, even though it's not, part of the class. I wonder, let's brainstorm it. What do we need to do in order to make it easier for them to do it? Like obviously some sort of like a guide, manual, handbook, I don't know, but anything else we can offer them to make it easier for them?
For them to create a club?
Right, to create a club, like some sort of, because again, I know for a fact, there are many parents, many teachers who would want to do this idea if they learn and understand what exactly that might be. The problem is that many of them will not act on it, not because they don't want to or they don't want to invest the time, but because they just don't know how to go about it. And I wonder if there is something we can help them with. As I said, maybe have some sort of like a step-by-step manual, or perhaps have some sort of, initial set of, materials that they can use in the initial, I don't know, like orientation session, or maybe some sort of materials that they can distribute to the potential club members, be it parents or students or other teachers. Like, I wonder if there is anything like we can provide them with a package that once they have it, they're like, oh, that's easy. Oh, okay, I see how much time it will take. I definitely can, so they don't have to think too much in terms of making it happen. They just, follow the established procedure and then just invest some of their time and enthusiasm and effort. Like, what's the best way to do it, do you think?
I think Volodymyr.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Volodya.
Okay. Look, I really like idea in the first, but I mean, not in the first. In the first, I have some questions. But when I think about it also, it's a good. But what if we make this not like a club, but as a game? For example, we meet with a
director. That is interesting. Very interesting.
With a director, or I don't know, we just sorry for language, but spam an email, and we propose like X Culture Clubs competition. For example,
that is also genius. Every school participates in case competitions, in chess competitions,
yes,
competitions. Very, very organized.
To kids, create a group voluntarily. They want and want. We will tell. We will teach them. So they will participate, and maybe, I don't know if it will be good to take money from them, but just if we won't orient on numbers, it should be, I guess, free.
Again, forget the money. I'll pay you your base salary, and maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, we create a competition among schools, just and send a letter. Like, we invite kids to create teams, clubs where they can invite, and after they invite, they register, they apply, for example, as a class, and they enroll, and competition for them is which
that is a very, very good idea. So if we present it, so basically we send them the letters not saying that, you know, there is this program that you have to pay to participate, but it offers many benefits, but it's more like we challenge you to a competition that offers many benefits. And so other schools will participate, and let's see how your school does compared to other schools. And then basically provide all the, you know, materials, and then maybe even, at least for the first year or two, maybe let's even set up some prize. I mean, I do know I will be able to raise enough funds from our companies, from the sponsors, to pay for the you know, travel stipends to the best students. And so if your school wins, maybe we will sponsor one teacher and one student, or maybe, you know, the student from the winning team. That's a very good idea. And so, and then we can then recommend them to set it up as a club. So that actually that's a good idea too. So we invite them to the game, to the competition, so that they are interested in participating. But perhaps one of the requirements is to set it up sort of like a club. I don't know if they need to register it officially or just run it as a club.
No, just between them, and they apply as a club. And
right. And in that case, the club gives you a kind of a continuity. So when they set up some sort of a club, that means that they will have that club next semester, will have a new group of people to participate. That is a very, very good idea. I think that's how most of the schools will participate. They will have the club or competition or a club for a competition.
And for example, if continue the idea, we can set goals, challenges inside the club. I don't know if anyone familiar with achievements in video games, but this is a very good point. I mean, how companies make players play more? They make kind of achievements. It's just
right, like gamification. For that, by the way, guys, Volodymyr, you raised a very good question. I've been struggling with this idea for a long time, but there are several books that you guys, I guess must is a strong word, but you would benefit immensely if you read them. And so I have those books, I have them scanned in electronic format, and I'm ready to share them with anyone who's interested to read it. I'm just not sure about the ethics of sharing the books, and they're not that expensive, so I suppose if you wanted to buy the original, I would even pay for that. But one of those books is basically Actionable Gamification. It's a book on how to make a process more kind of like a game. Genius. When I read it, I mean, I listen to books. I'm a big fan of audiobooks. I've listened to over 500 by now. But sometimes you stumble across such a useful, such an actionable, book packed with actionable advice that you just must get a paper copy, because every page is filled with tips. And I just became tired of stopping all the time and taking notes on my phone. So I bought a paper copy so I can, leave notes on the margins. And so that's one of those books. And I don't know, I mean, I really would like you to read those books. And I do have them in a format that I can share. As I said, I don't think it would be ethical, copyright. So I don't think it would be ethical if I share the books basically, without you paying for it. So maybe we'll just look into the possibility of maybe me paying for you buying the book. And it may even be cheaper in your countries. Here in the United States, they usually cost about $20 a copy. So, but I suspect in other countries, it may be even cheaper, and totally worth it, because what you just said definitely matters. And instead of reinventing the bicycle and thinking, how others do it, by observing, you can actually get right into the core of it and see what they do. And the guy who wrote the book is actually a video gamer. So he specifically designed all this system for video games, and now it's basically a Bible for all the video gamers, but totally applicable to any other, activity, job, process, and stuff like that. I have a hard stop at 10 o'clock because we have several participants from Ghana. And I wanted to have a separate meeting with them to discuss how we're going to run it in Ghana, given that we have a larger group. So it's not one person in one geography. So we're going to start in about 10 minutes there. Any last minute comments? I love the idea of clubs and games and maybe a combination of the two. I do believe that's how we will get the most participants through schools. I still believe that the overall number of participants signed up individually through parents will be probably larger, but probably most of those will be recruited online. And by the way, one more question I have for you. So online, I do believe strongly in online recruitment for the reason that we can target very specific populations in very large numbers. So the conversion rate will probably be very small. So if, let's say, we show an ad or send a message to, let's say, 1,000 people, of 1,000, probably only 10, maybe 50 at most, will actually look at it. So the other ones will simply delete it. And of those, let's say 50 who will look at it, only maybe 5, so only 10% will actually sign up. So we may get only like 5 out of 1,000 who will actually convert and sign up. Maybe 10, I don't know. So which means that we may get only 1%, maybe, 0.5% or 2%. But the beauty of this approach is that you can relatively cheaply reach a huge audience. So literally, like with $1,000 or so, you can reach close to 1 million people on Facebook, for example, of your specific demographics. The price depends very much on whom you're trying to reach. So like there are some segments of populations that are more popular for advertisement, and so they may be more expensive, and then some are less popular, and then the more specific you get, usually the more expensive the price. But still, for a reasonable budget, you can reach a huge number of people. And even if the percentage of those who will sign up will be still low, we can still get hundreds of sign-ups and maybe even thousands of sign-ups with a relatively modest budget. And so I do believe that it will be more effective with individuals than individual contact. Schools are definitely, you need people, so you cannot really do it online. But individuals, I think it will work better when you do it online. But the question I have for you is, do you think it's better to do that advertisement centrally, basically me doing it on behalf of the whole planet, or us, through our account? Or do you think it would be better to let you guys do it locally? And by that, I don't necessarily need to set up a Facebook account, put money in it and pay for it. So we can still pay centrally. But what I don't know, and I think it may be better if you do it, is if you design the ad, because the local, in many cases, it may have to be in a local language, but on top of that, the local culture and what the message should be. And then you select the population. Again, maybe in the United States, people marry later. And so people who have children ages, let's say 14, 15, maybe like 45 years old, and maybe even 50 years. Whereas in, let's say, Ukraine or, I don't know, Ghana or some other countries, maybe people marry earlier. And maybe they have children of that age when they are like, I don't know, 35. So 10 years earlier. And so I wouldn't know that. So when I design my sample, I may just go to your own age group, for example, or your own whatever other, interests we choose. So I think it would be necessary that at least you provide some input. But at the same time, it may be a good idea to give you sort of like the decision power, who, when, and how to advertise. But then perhaps you will send us the instructions, and then we will manage it so you don't, because it's not so easy. You have to create an account, you have to put the money in account, link a credit card. So we don't want you to waste time on that. That's probably not very efficient. But we can do it on your behalf once you tell us what to do, or give you access to our account and you'll do it from our account. What do you think about that? Do you have any interest to try it? Do you think it's going to work? Do you have any reservations why it may not work, or what we have to keep in mind when we do it? Any thoughts about this online advertisement?
Is it working? I had a question about how to reach individuals, because, for example, we cannot just knock on every door, and I think
right.
Facebook is a very good idea, and I think I guess that, for example, we can invest our market, our region, and we can propose how to best reach. For example, we know the target audience. This is women who spend their time like 3 hours a day between 5 and 7 o'clock after the work. They in Facebook, they play some casual video games, read some publics, and in these times they're like very vulnerable to see the ad and okay, maybe it's good for my kid.
Yeah.
We send this information.
In the interest of time, let me address that right away. Yes, absolutely. It's not a good idea to go door to door. So you cannot just knock on the door and say, "Hi, my name is, such and such." No, I was thinking about individual enrollments more. Go to existing clubs, either those that exist with schools, in schools, or more likely, as I said, again, I don't know how it works in different countries, but for example, Ukraine, like in the United States, in most cases, it would be a combination of the two. But in Ukraine, as you know, for example, most of those clubs are independent organizations.
Yeah.
They would have some sort of like a convention center or some sort of like a youth palace or whatever they call those things. And they would be, like have all kinds of like ecology club, chess club, video games or coding club. And so when I say individual enrollments, I mean more like going to those organizations and asking, for a few minutes to maybe talk to the parents when they have the next meeting. That's one option. Second option, I imagine that in some countries, newspaper advertisement still works. So maybe placing an ad in a local newspaper, maybe dying out now. I don't think newspapers are that important anymore, but who knows, maybe somewhere they are. And then third, online advertisement, like literally maybe placing an ad on Facebook, maybe, trying to find local groups. And I know there are many, many groups where parents exchange ideas, where parents, talk about things and looking for clubs like this, and maybe finding out if they exist, how to reach them, and then either approaching the moderator and asking to post a message or maybe joining the group. And so I was thinking more about those kinds of methods as opposed to, going, door to door. Maybe also attending like local, if there is, let's say, for example, like a local, I don't know, TED Talk. Maybe, being one of the sponsors or simply distributing some, information, booklets, pamphlets, asking the organizers, obviously, for the permission first. Or maybe there is some sort of like a city holiday, like some towns have a little like town celebration, town day. And again, in many cases, they would have like booths or tables where local either companies or clubs or organizations or sponsors can have a table and, distribute some sort of information. So again, trying to see if you can get one of those and perhaps be, there to, to talk to people about your thing. Going maybe to the local chamber of commerce, local, I don't know, Rotary Club or whoever else may be organizing things like that. And so I don't know how it would work in other countries, but that's what I was thinking more kind of that promotion method, as opposed to just stopping strangers on the street and asking them what they think. So
I agree.
Anyway, so I have to stop now just because I have the next meeting in 3 minutes. Thank you so much all for participating. As I said, several ideas that you expressed. Let me work on it this weekend and see if I can prepare some sort of like a start, initial draft of the manuals for club creation and competition, and let's see if we can do it better. And maybe even, as I said, maybe promote it as a competition, enroll in the competition. And the prize will be, I don't know, a stipend to, for example, the meeting in whatever the next meeting is, or maybe a cash prize, I don't know, to the school. If the school, if that teacher's class turns out to have the highest peer evaluations and, on average, write the best reports, maybe we'll even give some sort of a prize to the school itself. And so we'll need to think about it and maybe even have like a whole different line of advertisement because of that competition. And then, create a club and you can participate as a school, as a club, and see how it goes. And let's see what happens. Meanwhile, do think about that. I think those two are very promising ideas. Think about how it can be done from the moment we prepare the materials for it to advertisement, to management, and what happens when the competition is over and what happens to the club for the next semester. And so I think that will probably go very well. Sorry, can't take any more questions because I need to start the other meeting. I think I can leave the meeting.
Answer, sorry, 30 seconds. The answer, what we do as the point of achievements is to share the legacy of the future generation. So
right.
Basically, 3.
Give them some sort of like a plaque that they can put on the wall, like 2017 champions of agriculture, something like that. Yeah. No, that definitely we can do. We can definitely do that. Very good idea. Yeah. With the plaque or some sort of like a flag, like the gymnastics club have. Think about that. I think it's a very promising set of ideas. Now, I wish we could talk to Jasmine and Sing team. I had many meetings with them about all kinds of things in the last few weeks. So I wish they had the time to share it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this meeting, but I think you will be able to stay in it. And so this way, I'm not sure if you want to stay much longer and discuss, but if you do, you'll have that option. Now, let me just see if I can leave without...